pride in it, they enjoy it as they do it, because doing it for a former commander-in-chief, and I'm sure the public will be happy to see what the military can do on this day.
And I can see that now is this what you call the gun carrier?
It's a gun carriage, yes.
So the gun carriage is at the back. What do you call the car in front? Or the whole of it?
This is the gun tower.
The gun tower.
The gun tower. Now, behind now is the gun carriage. Okay, that's the gun carriage. The carriage itself is behind. What it's on is the carriage now. You can see that. You see the tower is in front, and the carriage is behind. Yeah. So that is where we'll be carrying ammunition. Sometimes also it will be replaced by the gun itself. The gun will be mounted there. So it may be ammunition or the gun itself. So the whole thing is a gun carriage.
And it's very important to note here that the procession we've been waiting for is now making its way out of the Leaf Funeral Home. Of course, as per the timetable, it spoke about 7:05 would be the time to leave. It's now 6:50, so 15 minutes ahead of time. And they'll make that short journey through Valley Road, then join Uhuru Highway, then get into the area at the town of the Intercontinental Hotel, get to Parliament Road, and eventually get to Parliament. So tell us about the significance of this journey, but also there's a question coming in that when President Moi died, in the proclamation, you didn't hear the president speak about that officials that are allowed to fly their flags would not have them on their cars. This time around, we've heard of that.
Thank you very much, Sam. I want to say that we very much learn from history. And you will note that on this day, when we're actually having the line set for President Moi, the courtyard left actually Leaf Funeral Home in a hearse, not in what you're seeing today. Today we're carrying it in the gun carriage. Now, there's much more honor today in the way it is being done. Ideally, this is the way it should be done. Last time, it was on when we went for the final funeral, the gun carriage came in to do this. Today, it's a different thing altogether. Now, again, remember, last time, the second time we were having such an event. And the previous one, of course, was during the burial of President Kenyatta, way back in 1978. We've even forgotten how this takes place.
Right.
So having it at that time was a bit new for some of us. And that proclamation did not come out as it is today. Today it's been done very well. It is very clear indeed, and all the honors will be observed on this great day. Yes.
And let me bring in the guests that are here in studio. Kiproto Kirwa, this was your boss for 5 years. Tell us about your thoughts this morning as you look at what is on screen.
I think Kibaki was more than a boss. He was more of a friend to us as ministers in his cabinet, and also people who interacted with him greatly in the affairs of this nation. One thing that comes out about Kibaki is that he's a man who never wanted to reprimand anybody, and any time you made a mistake, he would allow you with the fullness of time to correct your own mistakes. And he spent a lot of time not directing people that do this. He spent a great deal of briefs by questioning. Anytime he was not sure or you are not clear to him, he would not tell you do this. He would actually ask him more questions until you realign your thoughts with what he perceives to be the correct position. So for a man like that, we honor him. And we thank God for giving him to us for the period that he served in this country, and for the fact that he has lived to be 91. Perhaps if it was not for the accident and the subsequent events that happened after the accident, he would have lived longer than he did.
And of course, his time has come. Mheshimiwa Chirao Mwakwere, I spoke to you on Friday, on the day that President Kibaki passed, and you expressed your condolences. But looking at what you're seeing on screen, what comes to mind?
Such an event for a person we knew and worked under brings a feeling of sadness, I must admit. But it's God's will. However, as I watch, I remember how he managed his affairs, particularly in relation to his cabinet ministers. In simple words, I can say he practiced tension-free management. Tension-free management. As my colleague has just said, he was a friend to all, and he felt and gave space to his ministers to run their ministries and come up with ideas that contributed the development of the nation without any interference. All he did was he gave guidance. He gave guidance, and very useful guidance, and hence the achievement that he made as our president.
He gave guidance, Honorable Chira Mokore says here. And of course, as we look at this, retired brigadier, I mean, because between 1978 and 2020, those were 41 years that we had not seen such rites in honor of a fallen former president. So does the military keep learning, keep training? And where do they even get that information for a whole 40 years without having to use the skills?
Actually, the good thing is that we don't do things in terms of how you see things. All these things are documented, apparently. In fact, all military operations are documented, how to undertake them. And we have standards across board, standard operating procedures that guide us all that we do, so that those who were there a few years back have documented this. And when the new team comes in, they don't actually start afresh. They pick on from what has been there. All that we do is to update that information, update the SOPs, but they remain current and relevant. And therefore, nothing is out of this world. Actually, it is that everything is available, and we are happy to use it for the purpose intended on that special day. Standard operating procedures are there. How to do business are there. They're all documented. As I said, again, you'll find that coming from the Commonwealth, we very much borrowed much of this from the British system. Very much so. In fact, almost I can say 95% comes from the British traditions. And therefore, that being a very old tradition, it has been very helpful for us. The only thing we do, which is very important, is to domesticate to our own local situation. That we do also, because not all will be relevant for us as it happens. Yes.
And of course, if you're joining us this morning, this is the time that the procession from Leafin Home is headed to Parliament buildings. Of course, at this point in time, getting into Valley Road, that is just adjacent to the DOD, Department of Defense. And of course, then that short journey will be, like I told you earlier on, joining Kenyatta Avenue. Yes, then after that, get into Uhuru Highway, then get into the turn at Intercontinental Hotel to turn into Parliament Road, and finally land the Parliament buildings. And of course, shortly will be joined by the former Secretary to the Cabinet, that is Francis Kimemia, who also served as the Head of Public Service and earlier on a Principal Secretary in the Security Docket under President Kibaki. He'll be joining us to tell us about some of these issues and his experience in working with him. And of course, our teams are all over Nairobi. That's the Valley Road, as you expect that procession to be getting in there. Governor Francis Kimemia, good morning and welcome on board as we bid farewell to the former president. And first of all, because I've not had an opportunity to have you on record, your thoughts about the former president and this morning's events.
Yes, good. Thank you very much and good morning. Thank you very much and good morning. I think it's a great pleasure to be here to discuss not only the third president, but also a friend and a father and a very good mentor, and a man who believed in people. I think if there's anything that we remember Mzee for, is that he was a man who believed in building people, adding value into people's lives, but also being very, very professional, and a man who believed that you grow institutions. You should grow institutions and grow people in institutions and professionalize those institutions so that they can add value into the lives of the people. And I think that's where that cliche, adding value into people's lives, came from the philosophy of Mwai Kibaki. And he was very, very, very close to people's sufferings. And I wouldn't hesitate to say that if there's anything I remember Mzee not wanting to hear is famine. Kwamba watu watapata njaa, people will be hungry. And I know the ministers who are here and the general here will tell us, we remember that we would spend almost, we would look at 6 months in the country and be able to project what is likely to happen and what should you do. He never wanted to see people suffering, either through insecurity,
right, or
through lack of food. If there's a sticker to food policy or food security issues, it was Mwai Kibaki. And also that sticker to details. You bring your report to Mwai Kibaki when you are fully prepared. Don't just put figures and think that you read through and just you add it themselves. You add the figures themselves. If you miss by 1 point, you have to go back to your report and do your mathematics again. So he was a perfectionist. I think I can say he was a perfectionist, and he trained us to give the best to this country, not second class, the best to this country, and consider the welfare and the interests of the national interest and the security interests of this country. That's why those two ones were very, very critical. If you remember, what is the national interest and what is the security, the interest of the security of this nation. And I think those are values that we would like to. But the fact that you can grow leaders, I think that is a mark. He grew me. I can say that he grew me from almost zero, and this is why I am today the governor of Nyandarua County.
Right.
And I rose to become the head of public service. And Mheshimiwa Makwere and the Waziri would agree, even in cabinet itself, in spite of, we had almost 41 ministries at one time. And we would have presentations from morning to, of course, to lunch. We never went beyond, I think the latest 2 p.m. In spite of all those constitutional requirements, and he made sure that he had a calendar. He made sure that all the bills in the Constitution that emerged from the Constitution 2010 were all, they were all stipulated in the Constitution. The deadline is this. We never failed, not even an inch.
And he would pay attention to
it. Was that stickler? Yes, in the cabinet he would have read all the papers. He will call you at midnight to say, can you defer this one? Can you bring this one again? Can you, call a special team to recheck? So unlike what people thought, this was a bag, laid bag. I don't know which word they were using. They didn't know. They didn't know that you don't have to. I think that humility, that you don't have to show off, that you know too much. And Makwere will tell you, and the Waziri Kirwa will tell you, he never talked much. You open the meeting, you talk and talk and talk, and you go to the recommendations. He was not a man of...
No time for that. No. That's very interesting because, yes, like you say, many would have referred to him as a laid-back person, but it's good to hear from the men that worked with him closely to tell us about some of those perspectives. I want to go back to Minister Kirwa, but before I do that, retired brigadier, so we're looking at this. They left at about 6:50. It's now 7:02. They are on the Valley Road. What is the approximate speed they are moving at, and what is the recommended speed, if you know?
Again, this is very much an honor that it's a very slow pace to give honor to the late president. They're about maybe, I can't say the exact speed, but that speed is just what is adequate. And they should be, actually they're about just past Pan-African now.
Right.
And I believe in the next maybe 10-15 minutes, they should be within Parliament buildings. But as you say that, Sam, I want to talk about the vehicle itself.
Right.
They just pulled back a bit. There are two flags flying on the gun carriage. The national flag and another flag. That is the presidential standard. That, again, is normally raised on any occasion only when that actual president is there. It is for that president. So each president has his own presidential standard. They pick and move on. So in front of the car, you can see there are two flags, the national flag and President Kibaki's presidential standard. And of course, near the place, you can see the 5 stars depicting the commander-in-chief, which again picks on from military tradition, that a brigadier is 1 star, 2 major general, all the way to 5 star. The CDF is 4 star. Commander-in-chief is 5 star. All laid out very well in the front of the gun carriage, indeed.
So no one else but the president will have 5 stars?
It's only for the president. Of course, in those countries, rising along those lines, You see, starting with a brigadier as 1 star, the other person who may have the 5 star is normally a field marshal. And for the field marshal of African countries is a rare occasion. You have fought in war, achieved what you desire, and attain that. We end at the 4 star, and then the 5 star is reserved for the commander-in-chief, where in those countries the president is indeed the commander-in-chief. In some, he's not. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And Minister Kirwa, so yes, working with the president, and how is it like? Because yes, he had been a vice president, but had a break of between 1988 and 2002. No, it was 1991 and 2002 being in cabinet. How was it, especially at the start of that NAC regime, having to figure out what to do against the promises of the election and the manifestos that he had had?
Well, as I said, after the accident and subsequent to him winning the election, there were other events that took place that almost incapacitated the president. And for about 6 months, we used to brief him, but under very strenuous conditions, in the sense that he was not fully recovered. As after recovering, he carried out his duties the way Governor Kimemia said, going through meticulously all cabinet papers, and any time that he had difficulty with any paper, he would refer back to the parent ministry for that for those issues to be corrected. I remember I went to brief him on issues of food security, and gave him a number of counties that were doing well, or districts at that time. And at the end of it all, because there was an uproar in the media, and those of us in the Ministry of Agriculture, we knew, because it was about August, we knew by September, by November, we'll be harvesting from the North Rift, which is the largest block of where we get the maize. Now, at some stage, I told him, Your Excellency, there is a problem. The media is hyping this issue. I kept quiet. Then he told me, if we had those papers, we would have written the same. So I knew the president was telling me, you are wrong, the media is right. So I told him, let me come back on Monday. So we went to reconfigure the issues, and we settled at importing only 2 million bags instead of 4 million bags that had been hyped. So here is a man who will not tell you are wrong, but he will ask you questions until you realize you are wrong, and therefore you have to correct yourself. So that is the man that I know, and anytime he explained an issue, even when he was the leader of opposition, and we had the privilege of interacting with him in Parliament, he would explain an issue, even if it's a serious economic term. Those of us who have not done deep economics, he explains to you until you leave that place feeling you are almost an economist, emerging economist. Because he was able to download to the level of even a pedestrian in the street the issues that are supposed to be complex in terms of economics. And therefore, here is a man, as Governor Kimemia said, who never wanted to take glory. I remember we were having a discussion in the cabinet about the issue of changing the face of the Kenyan note. And some of us were proposing that he should have we should have his portrait on it. And he said no. He was very emphatic. Actually, the only thing we did was the 40 shilling. I think it is the 40 shillings coin that has his image. But the rest of it he never wanted. And another time we were almost talking about some of the stadia being named after certain individuals. He said, no, we don't change. Those who named them at the time they built, they knew exactly what they were doing. I remember we were referring to Nyayo Stadium because those of us who had come in were almost in a hurry to remove anything Nyayo. But he said, no, the fellows who built that stadium knew exactly why they did that. Let us build more, and we named them. So here is a man who never wanted to take glory for anything that happened. And therefore, the befitting send-off we are giving him, we are saying what he would not even have wanted us to say, because he never wanted glorification of anything that he did. He said we are doing it because that's the right thing to do.
You just told me that in that particular incident of August 2003, he looked at you and he told you, in some different terms that you are wrong. Where was he getting his source of information? Because we'd imagine that the ministers would be the key advisors to him.
Well, we assist him, or any minister advises the president to the extent of the information available to him. But being head of state is privileged to have a lot of information, both from NIS, from the military, and from other sources, including the general public. Therefore, when he has that information, he will not tell you, this is what I know. He will just ask you questions until you realize you are off the rails,
right.
And therefore you mitigate your steps and make sure that you do the right thing.
And of course, now that procession is on Uhuru Highway, just below the expressway. And of course, then shortly after, we'll be getting to close to the Parliamentary Road so that finally can get to the destination of the morning, which is Parliament. Honorable Chirao Mwakwere, you worked in different dockets under the President, whether it's foreign affairs, whether it's trade, whether it's transport. What informed his choice of you for those particular dockets? What did he look at before picking some of you to different areas, if you know?
It's very difficult to quantify the consideration that he made before he appointed somebody to a cabinet position. But I can tell you, he valued meritocracy. He valued meritocracy, and he did not stop there. He was hands-on on every subject or area or any ministry that I served as the head. Of course, I served in 5 different ministries under him: Minister of Labor and Human Resource Development, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Transport, Minister of Trade, and finally, Minister of Environment and Mineral Resources. Now, I can tell you, he read every bit of document that was sent to him. And he would correct areas where one did not expound sufficiently by simply asking a question. And his questions are very simple, straightforward, very simple. And then he would stop there. At that moment, you really need not answer him. You just pose question, and then you go back and put it right. I remember one occasion when I prepared the cabinet memorandum for the standard gauge railway line. And also did the preliminary design. When I presented it to him, and Governor Kimemia will recall, he asked many questions, but one simple question that rings in my mind is, okay, this is good, this is good, this will open up our economic activities. Now tell me, are you separating Tsavo East from Tsavo West? He just left it at that point. You scratch your head. When you come back, when he poses a question, remember there's something that you got to expound on, and come back to him. So I said, thank you, Your Excellency. Just that question.
Yes.
So what we did is we went back and ensured that there was a corridor for animals to cross from Tsavo East to Tsavo West, including the raised railroad on several places to facilitate mobility of wild animals. So what I'm saying here is he had a tension-free approach to matters, to his officers, to his ministers, so that you felt privileged even to be discussing with him issues, whether they're straightforward, complicated. He would always give guidance, and guidance was through simple questions. He was a man of very few words, but highly knowledgeable. You know, in simple terms, one could say he was a genius.
Right.
It's amazing. Those 5 ministries which I managed received total guidance from the president. And to me, it's a pleasure. I thank God to have served under President Kibaki.
And Governor Kimemia, so if he has so refined details about different things, including this project of Tsavo East versus Tsavo West, how did he get that? Because you are the engine behind the agenda of cabinet, especially when you're the secretary to the cabinet. How did he get that? Is it out of his experience, or is it because of the engine behind him?
Both of them. You see, the president is the presidency also. He's in charge of what you call the presidency. And he's the greatest consumer of intelligence and information within government. So, and also outside, there are things he would also bring to us, which are not necessarily in our domain. But he has picked it from possibly Wananchi, or his consultations with his friends, either in the private sector. Mind you, Kibaki believed in the private sector, becoming the engine of growth in the country. So you asked a very fundamental question: how did he, for instance, appoint so and so, not only ministers but also technocrats,
right,
to head either parastatals or PSCs and so on? And he consulted a lot. One thing I know is that he consulted a lot, and he got your biodata through and through, from which schools you went to and how you performed in the schools, and then how you have related to with other with the public sector or with the private sector. So, but I think then after that it will be backed up by very credible intelligence from within government and outside government, both overt and covert intelligence that comes to the table of the president, because he can call anybody in the country. He can call a chief, he can call the PC, he can call how is the PC close to how is Mzekirwa, I mean, or Rift Valley, or close how is Makwele, fairly. So by the time you are appointed, there is a formal recommendation that we take as a leader from the office of the PS head of public service. But there is also then what has come out from all sorts of informers,
right?
Both formal and informal, informations that come to the president. But the fact that he daily consumed whatever was given to him, I think that was a shock to us.
Right.
That whatever you give him a briefcase full of information, reports, he'll give it back to you with his comments. I want this one I don't agree. Call this meeting.
So what time is this that he would read? Late in the night or?
Immediately in the morning, in the evening, when he goes back to State House. But he would come to Harambee House as a routine every day and go back to State House in the evening. So he had all the time. If he's calling you at 11 p.m., what does he tell you? To ask about a paper which was possibly discussed today or yesterday. So it means he spent most of his time at referencing, looking at materials and looking for. Because that's how you. There's one way you can pursue excellence in managing public affairs.
Sure. Making
sure that nothing is left to chance.
So it's a full-time job.
He was a quiet revolutionary who people didn't seem to know. If you look at the way he steered he changed the entire public sector. When he came in, and the ministers here will remember, and General, I was in the Ministry of Education, and I was called to OP. I was in OP, then I was moved out, then I came back. And I was told, if you look at the NAC manifesto then when they came in, it described the security sector as very retrogressive, very oppressive, very retrogressive, very corrupt. So all the chiefs are supposed to go home, if you're the 10,000 of them. and then we talked to Mzee and asked him, if 10,000 people go home, it doesn't add value to anybody. I think it is possible to change, to transform these people. And we came up with a whole reform. If you remember the governance, justice, law and order sector, looking at the judiciary, looking at the police, and the reform agenda that he put in, the bringing in of the performance contracting.
We'll continue on that note, because right now the gun carriage has made its way to Parliament buildings, and of course some few very specific events are just about to happen. Retired Brigadier General, I think this is the time that we bring you in to tell us about this, because I've just seen some of the military officers on the gun tower stand up. Tell us about this.
Yes, the procession is now inside Parliament, and the next activity is actually to bring it into Parliament buildings, and here we will see the pallbearers of the rank of Colonel, who will be the ones to actually take the body and then place it in the right place within Parliament. The same team is what will now remain with the body for the next 3 days, providing vigil at all the corners of the cottage within Parliament building. So anytime now, they should be coming in. And there's also a guard of honor right there. Once the body moves in, the guard of honor will also take position and be able to pass their respects to the late president. Actually, I can say well placed from the get, ready for that. Yes.
And I see the Kenya Navy, Kenya Army, and the Kenya Air Force. Is there any specific preference for how many should be from each segment?
Sam, we are a very unified military in the sense that although the Army is the largest within Kenya, followed by the Air Force and then the Navy, normally the numbers reflect almost the same picture because even in terms of officers on ground, it will take the same number. So the Army will have much more than the Air Force and then the Navy. But it is indeed a tri-service occasion where all services will be represented. Yes.
Okay, all right. And of course, we will shortly be listening live to the processions there as we wait for the casket carrying the remains of President Kibaki to be moved to, what do you call it? Is it what do you call it? The place that moves the body. Is it the trolley? What do you call it?
The small carriage. Actually, it's more like a trolley, which is for that purpose,
Okay, so
the carriage is a big one, and there's a small trolley that will now be used to actually drive it in. You can see now the pallbearers, the rank of Colonel, all well set out, ready to proceed to the carriage, ready to deliver the body to its sitting place in Parliament. Normally, they will be led by an officer of the rank of brigadier to stand over those colonels.
Right.
And of course, all of them will be having the black armband on their left arm, again, in a sign of respect and honor to the former commander-in-chief. You can see a slow march now, coming in, all moving in very slowly, and with honors towards the carriage.
So these are the ones that will be moving the body to?
These are actually the pallbearers.
Pallbearers.
Yeah, who will be able to carry the body. Sometimes we call them the vigil team. You know, they are those who will be carrying now the body into Parliament buildings.
And I think this is the point that we may want to listen into what's going on the ground so that we can get a real feel of what's happening at Parliament. Listen. Well, unfortunately, I'm told that we don't have the audio from location. But then as this happens, if I recall from what happened with President Mwai, yes, the body is moved into Parliament buildings. Then there's a session that there was not much movement up until President Kenyatta arrived. So in between, what's going on?
Actually, it remains very much a military function right now, you know, with the pallbearers, and you've seen also the clergy on site to provide the prayers as and when they are required. Once it is placed in place, it is actually time for the military now to position themselves well. As I said, the cottage, while actually lying state, will have that full coverage by military officers, the vigil team, standing on all the four corners throughout the day. But of course, they'll be replaced as they go through this. So essentially, that's preparation is what will be going on now, setting the scene, ready for that. The first, of course, person to come in to view will be, of course, our current Commander-in-Chief, President Uhuru Kenyatta, at 10 o'clock, I'm told.
Yes, the timing is 10 o'clock, and we'll be sure to bring in that. So at the moment, you can see the movement there. Like a retired Brigadier General here says, then there will be that guard of all. If this was when the president was still in office, then he would have been the one inspecting the guard of honor. What's that difference? I heard Hassan mention a bit of it. What's that difference between, is it guard in line or line guard, or what is that term?
Yeah, the Guard of Honor is much more the larger contingent that you normally see, you know, maybe on parade and all that. And they come in different categories. You know, in the military, you have the quarter guard, which actually one that we normally see very much across our gates every day when we mount and dismount the guard in the morning. Then we have the half guard, which will be mostly for presidents, and then the full guard also. Now, the one in line is a smaller version of the same. You see, the normal Guard of Honor will have 2 lines, but the one in line is a shorter one, just all straight, single individuals standing in line and passing their honors. Yes, that becomes the Guard in line.
Wow, yes. And that's just what we are just about to witness. And as we talk about this, let me get back to you. You are making a point, Governor Kimemi, about the reforms he brought about performance contracting at a time that the confidence in public institutions was pretty low. Tell me about that magic.
Yes, I think that was the most transformative for those of us who worked with him. I think the most transformative issue was the fact that he was able to, magically, almost by magic, convert a very lethargic public service, very well paid, very, I would almost say unprofessional in terms of very trained people, but you see, it depends on the motivation, how you motivate your staff. I remember when he came in within the first year, I give an example of a DC. The DC was earning about 20,000 shillings. By the end of the year, that same year, a DC was earning more than 100,000 shillings. And what he did, yes, pay people well, demand accountability and results. And we started talking about results-oriented public service. You remember, efficient, effective, ethical. Those ones started resonating with the public sector reforms and judicial service reforms and and he was able to source money from the international community and from the government and able to marshal that public sector reforms. And remember, it was every year there was, there was what you call it, it's like a ritual. Every year there was the best ministry and and the worst 10, the best 10, the worst 10, and that was one of the worst moments. And people really lost jobs, when you underperformed. You will not be told that you went because of that, because it will happen maybe a few months after. But it informed who was detained in that government. So people learned to focus on results. The issues of hanging coats and leaving the office disappeared. People were paid well. Offices became smart. Flowers were introduced in government, and they brought in that culture of cleanness. Right. That you can have a clean government. But of course, we don't forget to credit him with remember the session paper number 10 of 1965, and we saw it coming up in the Vision 2030. You could see the same thoughts with the Boyer being introduced in the Vision 2030 that he personally, took through the the government. So I think, and of course, the digital cabinet, we can't. They brought in a digital cabinet. For once, we were able to get things on the laptop, and we were able to process matters in cabinet through the laptop as we went in. So right. I think what I'm saying, very revolutionary person, very reformist president, but whom you never think would bring in those kind of changes. That we say when it came to say Amazon, generally say when it came to joining Amazon, Mwai Kibaki did not hesitate. Say that national interest comes first. Right. And national security comes first. Whatever it takes, we take the bull by the horn. And that's why we're enjoying the security we're enjoying today. But of course, it maybe is good to add that you are as good as your people. That's what Mwai told us. You are as good as the people you bring into government. Every Monday, he would listen to President Uhuru Kenyatta, then the Minister of Finance and the Governor Central Bank, to bring the economy to 1-digit interest rate. Every Monday. And you can imagine it's a ritual. Every Monday you have to come. And we are not coming to mourn or to cry. Why it can't go to 1 digit. That is 9% or 7 or 8. Right. And you remember we were never able to achieve that target, but we almost went to 12, 11%. I think that's the kind of person we are discussing. Right. In this country.
And this journalist, his name is Waweru Wanyambura. He is asking me that you need to repeat the ranks of the pallbearers that you've just seen there, if you may.
Yeah, as I said, the pallbearers of the rank of Fulcano, and are normally led by a brigadier, which is just one rank higher, brigadier general. But I should mention some also that something just happened now. When the casket was placed ready to be moved in, they observed more like a minute of silence, and everybody on site will take a salute. And the guard of honor will then now do the present arms before the cortege now moves actually into Parliament. You can see now the guard of honor is still on present arms. The honors, now they are relaxing, which was very important. It was the first contact now really between the team and the cortege. So that honor starts from there in terms of observing all the honors that are required on this very important day.
Right. And let me get to you, Minister Mwakwere, because yes, this leader, or is it manager, who is consuming so much information, giving feedback to all of you, did you feel too much work, and how did you deal with that, while also you have political responsibilities for your constituencies and answers that you must give to your constituents?
I said earlier that he had a tension-free approach. So it was always a great pleasure for any minister to have that direct interaction with the president, or President Kibaki. For instance, we knew exactly when he appreciated what you're doing or when he was giving you a message that is not good enough. And he had facial expressions. The smile you see in that photograph indicated that he really appreciated what you're doing. And he would not use superlatives and big words to say, to express his appreciation. He would probably give a sentence that relates to what you've done. If it is below par, if I may say so, you'll learn it from his eyes because they'll pierce through you. Very interesting. And we all knew. You would not say that he was not pleased, but you know in your heart that, look, something has got to be done. But may I mention one area that people are not talking much about? He was a believer of a large economy based on people. That's why, together initially with President Mkapa and later with President Kikwete and all the time with President Museveni, they revived the East African community because that presented a large market that could sustain the economies of our countries. He played...
Just a moment. Retired Brigadier General, what's going on?
That was the guard of honor, which was on site to allow the casket to move in, who have just finished their task for now. And I believe they'll come back maybe in the evening to when the body is now being taken back to Leafin Row to again pass the same honors. They are the ones who are seeing on the sides, lining the sides, presenting arms and giving all the full honors as the casket was being marshaled through.
Okay. All right. I thought it says something because I saw them bowing down. I thought it's that time. But anyway, carry on, Waziri.
So he was, together with the other presidents, in the forefront in ensuring that the East African community was revived, that our economic activities provided mutual benefit or benefits to all countries while sustaining their sovereignty. There's a lot that can be said and written about that, on how he participated, how he encouraged it, to the extent that I must admit the East African community went to the extent of extending its membership to other countries. There were only 3 initially, but by the time he left office, there were 5 countries who were members of the community, and 2 others already applying to join at that time. The president was very interesting in his comments. As I said, he will not use superlatives, but will make a sentence that sends a strong message. For example, when I presented, Governor Kimemi will probably remember, the cabinet memo for the 2nd transport corridor in Kenya, that's the Lapset corridor. His comments were simple. This will double our GDP. It's like creating a 2nd Kenya within Kenya. That's all. So you already got his comments, he's encouraged you, and he doesn't have to use very good, very, very good, the best I've ever seen. No, he doesn't use those words.
So these words are being said within the cabinet meeting?
Within cabinet meetings.
Right.
Within cabinet meetings. But that's where the collective guidance was given.
Or Harambee House meetings.
Yeah, or Harambee House sometimes for individuals or a team of ministers. But his guidance is what made us achieve what we did. It is not simply an individual saying, I created this or that. It was him posing a question.
Right.
When we're doing the 2nd corridor, that's the Lapset corridor, he posed questions to us that we have sold Rift Valley Railways to Sheltam, and we sold East African, the Kenya Railways to Sheltam and Rift Valley Railways. So the question was, what do we do? We cannot transport our military hardware through a private company within our country. Just leave that question. And it was up to the ministers now to sit together, sometimes as small committees, sometimes as an individual, to come up with a proposal that would answer that question. And we did. So as I said, these were simple questions. They give guidance, you take action, and he expressed his appreciation with a smile. And we moved on.
What was the experience like, especially when you've done such a good job? Or were you, at that point, you don't know what his reaction would be because of what he knows?
Well, his body language spoke volumes. And one thing that I can say, the president never referred to himself as I. All the time when he was referring to an event, he said, we will do this. Why can't we do this? Yeah, and that's something that many leaders are yet to learn. He never looked at himself as if he's the only achiever. He looked at himself that all the time he's with a team. And a number of things that when he was not happy, he would not really express those things, that unhappiness in very heavy terms. He would actually tell you that something can be done. We can do it differently. And therefore, you picked the nudge from him and corrected the situation. And of course, once in a while, you could get totally annoyed. I remember we went to my constituency and we were handling issues of security between us and the border of the neighboring county or district at that particular time. And he was totally unhappy. And of course, I've been seeing it, some of the clips that you've been airing.